a complete specification of the whole project can be produced. Construction, 40% of that, schedule and budget, procurement, material management, method and equipment, labor and supervision, code, quantities and inspection, testing and quality assurance. Commission or handover, 5% of the time. Logistic for move and transition, bringing into operation, learning and adjustment. So all these are what we have to look at: owners, occupancy and operation, warranty, follow-up, maintenance and utilization, remodeling and additions. So all these are what you have to look at. Replacement and as well demolition may as well occur. Okay. So these are life cycle of a project. Like I've explained, these are the life cycle. And again, we can look at, development of infrastructure, undertaking feasibility studies. Development, project development and infrastructure demand highest form of creativity, innovativeness, expert ideas that could be seamlessly coordinated in a systematic manner from its inception to delivering and closure phase. Class, I hope you can see this.
Yes, I can see it.
All right. So the built environment sector is responsible, have their responsibility of creation of human artificial environment, or what they call physical infrastructure. This endeavor involves time, energy, cost, resources, creative idea, action, and risk as well. Thus, the importance of examining the project or development idea at inception stage cannot be overemphasized, as numerous project failure could be linked to poor feasibility study, report, or lack of it. Like we have mentioned, ESCOM. It may be ESCOM Medupi project. It may be as a result of poor feasibility study or lack of feasibility study. We keep on saying, occasionally people would say there's a corruption. People that undertook feasibility study of Medupi project, they could have anticipated political interference in the implementation of that project, and they could have offered proper solution on how to mitigate that. Maybe in the terms and conditions of a contract, they can put clause in the sense that will prevent any political interference. Okay. So in a complex society or community, number of entities generating need will impact and shape the environment considerably. Okay. So we can as well look at this aspect. An illustrative case of public and private entities. Private individuals seek to construct house that would be functional and comfortable, like home or residential construction. Also private entities such as commercial firms, they have the profit, they are profit driven, build facility to provide goods and services. Therefore, facilities such as manufacturing plant, hospitals, research laboratories, hotels and commercial buildings, communication network infrastructure are primarily profit-oriented and self-interest, whereas they must adhere to local authorities and rules and conditions. For public entities such as municipality, metro cities, towns, local and provincial and national government, design and construct public infrastructure in order to enhance the entire community well-being and quality of life. Many public infrastructure relate to development of infrastructure. Many public projects relate to the development of infrastructure in terms of capital expenditure, like we have talked about in our, in the budget analysis. Look at the expenditure government is going to make. We have discussed that that's how government distribute resources, by building infrastructure like hospitals, bridge, tunnels, transportation facilities, canals, dams, and public recreation parks. This is the way government improve the quality of life of people, the way government as well inject money in the society. So all these infrastructures are tropical projects which should be designed and constructed to meet the needs of a community, client, stakeholders in a given society. So look at this. Look at these given factors. You can see this another, important concept. So when we start a project, this level of influence on the cost, you have to look at the level of influence on the cost as well. So an important concept related to project effort is the quality and effectiveness of a finished product, as well as its cost and schedule. And this is determined predominantly by activities and decisions made in the earlier stage, which is conception, pre-design, and specification. So when you look at here, this is where the project starts. The project starts at 0% influence. This is the time of the project. As the project, you can see over here, the level of influence on the cost is quite low here. When you have your ideas, you see ability to influence the cost. This is the ability to influence the cost. Okay, as project progress over here, when you're doing your conceptual planning and feasibility studies, you have enormous ability to influence how the cost, the cost implication of the project. You can see this curve here. From this level, we have 100% when you commence the project. You can see over here the feasibility studies. At least you have like 10% to 90% to influence the cost over here. As things goes, this is where the project starts, but this is control, how to control the influence. You can see as the project progresses, if you look down, if you scale down on this, from this angle to this angle, when the project starts, is conceptual planning and feasibility studies. You have enormous control on that, right? Then you talk about design. As you start doing the design, that means feasibility study has been accepted, you go into design. And once you get into procurement and construction, the influence, the level of influence on the cost is expanded. You can see over here, look at the level from here to here, right? And in the construction, there's an intersection here when the project starts and the level in which you have. So once it crosses here, it becomes very expensive in terms of the time and the cost. The cost of construction is here, 100%. So you're not going to be able to control all this. And after that, look at the operation as well. So the degree of influence, the outcome declines steadily over time. As time progresses, you can see as time progresses, the degree in which you have to control the cost in terms of whether the project is going to proceed or not will diminish. Okay, so it has an impact or effect on action and decision in relation to project cost, schedule time, and performance. Okay, the biggest early decision is whether to conduct the feasibility study at all, and the commitment to a path leading to new facility will be accepted. So once you cross this threshold, feasibility study is viable to do. It can be done. You look at all the indicators, all the 14 indicators, they're all, in good shape. Maybe some with accepted with no challenge, some of them accepted with challenges. Some of them accepted with enormous challenges. Some of them may be not acceptable. Okay, so you need to, dissect the entire component of the project and ascertain whether the project should commence or not. Okay. So the same thing here as well. I guess I have explained this. So you look at the other earlier influential activities include defining the project scope, developing the general criteria according to which the facility will be developed or acquired. Much more time and effort may actually go into detailed design, even more into construction stage, but options, degree of influence and changes is high at initial decision. So what are we trying to say? At the initial time, the degree of influence, please mute your mic. The degree of influence to control whether the project should proceed or not is very high. But once it crosses that threshold, once you get into design, detailed design, and get into construction, the cost of the project will become very rigid. Here at the construction stage, constrained increasingly by successive decisions and actions are taken. So you have taken your decisions. Over here in construction stage, any changes you make will increase the cost significantly, and it will increase the time significantly. And we have seen this, when we're going to dissect issues of ESCOM, there's a rapid change of design. There's a rapid change of even the time as well. And this fundamentally compounded the complexity of the project. It shows that there was no concrete study. There was a kind of a rush to commence the project. And today it's costing the government a lot. Okay, the level of influence during the infrastructure development cycle at construction phase to reconsider the plan, to redesign, and to add to the cost and delay of the schedule. However, once the decision is being finalized, project baseline to embark on the project procurement, such as infrastructure, then the most sequential decision must be made within the narrow confines of its capacity. Also, once the infrastructure facility is in operation, changes can be enormously expensive and destructive relative to taking the time to make them in the feasibility studies and preliminary design stage. So what are we trying to say here? If, for instance, I'm saying I stand to be corrected anyway, but this is just for educational purpose. If, for instance, during the conceptualization of ESCOM Medupi Power Project, there was a concrete and comprehensive feasibility study. All the challenges we're facing today, we might face the challenge, which is a normal thing to face in the construction. But again, we could have a grip on how to control those challenges, not to run out of control. As it stands, it's running out of control. Okay, it has costs. There's a huge cost overrun. There's a huge time overrun. The project gonna be completed in 6 years. We're talking about 11, 12 years. 100% time overrun, even more than 100% cost overrun. Initial budget have doubled or tripled. It couldn't be if a proper feasibility study was conducted by professionals who understood the complexity of the project, understood the national priority of the project, who understood the economic implication of that project. So we can as well see over here, just evaluation of the level of cost, scope, quality, time, effort, stakeholders' influence, in infrastructure development cycle. You can see over here, infrastructure development, life cycle from ideas, initiation, investigation, feasibility analysis or studies, definition of the project scope, baseline, which is concept, go to preliminary design, specification, detail, project design, procurement, construction stage, commission, and order. So all this is what we're trying to explain here. Influence on process, performance, main major influence, rapidly decreasing, and all that. So all these you can see over here in this regard, the stakeholders' influence and opportunity to manage the risk is high. Is the highest early in the project. You can see over here. You need to once you're doing a project, number one thing you do, in the feasibility study stage, you identify all the stakeholders. All the stakeholders need to be identified. And like I said before, stakeholders are any person or group of persons who may have influence on the project. Is neither negative or positive, or any person or group of people that the project will have influence on. Is either positive or negative. So it's always like that. So the first thing, one of the first things you have to do when you're having a project is to make sure you identify all the stakeholders from the political arena to the community arena. Within the project team, you need to identify those given stakeholders. And within that, you plan how to manage them. You group them and understand their influences. Let's say, I guess recently, if I'm not mistaken, someone should correct me if I'm not mistaken. I guess that Ramaphosa recently talking about shifting Transnet to is that Eastern Cape? Transnet headquarters to Eastern Cape. Class, correct me if I'm not mistaken. Do we hear the story?
Did heard it's at Gagasi.
Yeah. So it may be in order to expand the economy. It may be political motivated. I don't know. Let me not get into that. But I'm trying to tell you the influence of stakeholders. And when you embark on a project, for instance, if you're doing a project in a rural area, maybe you're building schools or you're building, shopping mall, one of these localities, you need to identify during the feasibility study. You need to identify all the stakeholders. The community, the youth leader in that community. You need to identify what are the youths, what are they yearning for? Do they have the skills? Can you integrate them? Look at the government political influence on the project as well. You need to employ 30% of the 30% cost of the project have to go to the local people, SMEs. You need to look at those aspects, because again, if you don't consider that, you need to look at the business firm or what they call mafia money, construction mafias. You need to put that they're part of stakeholder because they can affect your project. Because so many projects has been stalled as a result of mafian construction mafians. Some people may say it's illegal, but we need to find a way to handle this because they have stopped many projects. So what are we saying? When we're able to identify all the stakeholders, we'll be able to manage them properly. From the beginning of the project, you need to identify those. So once you identify them, there's a various stakeholders. Even your project team are stakeholders because they can influence the project positively. They can influence the project negatively. So that's one of the first things you have to do when you are looking at the feasibility studies. Who are those stakeholders? Because it encompasses everything: financial, the banks, maybe they are sponsoring the project, expertise, government, political indicator, legalities. You need to identify all this and plan what are the risks and what are the potential risks for all this. So as you're planning, during the execution, that means you are abiding by those given aspects. And again, even when the project is being delivered, we have seen, in our various communities, if the community did not see the project as their own project, they will still damage the project. And that's what we're seeing not only in South Africa, but across the world. But when the community are being integrated as a result of their stakeholder, they will protect the infrastructure in a way. So that's why it's very good to engage with the community. In the subsequent classes, we're gonna see the importance of engaging the community as one of the stakeholders when you're embarking on a project. Okay, so I guess the same thing, we're talking the same thing here as well. So these are the stages in the effort and stakeholders level of effort and influence on the project. So you need to gather your data here, identify the needs, like we have said, what are the risks, what are the alternatives, what are the selling concept. Once that approved, you move here, do your feasibility studies, look at the budget. These are more business oriented. You develop your project charter, execution stage. So all these are aspects you have to look at. Okay, so let's look at the some of the elements or some headings you need to consider. This is quite a lot, but I guess I have to be fast enough in order to cover all this. Okay, so these are some of the headings or sections you need to consider when you are producing a comprehensive feasibility report. You see, when feasibility report is basically slightly different from feasibility study. So when you do a feasibility study, the report you compile is what they call feasibility report. Okay. So these are the headings you need to have in mind: the concept and the need of the project, establishing the demand, which in the case they can use the word the need of the project or business case. When you're talking about commercial, in a commercial level, look at the financial objective, the service objective, maybe market value, performance, capacity. For instance, in ESCOM, look at the when you talk about service objective, you look at the national priority of ESCOM, how important, the capacity, how many megawatts or whatever you're going to be able to generate in terms of the current demand in the market, and as well the future demand. You look at the statutory approval. Does it meet the necessary requirement? From government perspective, in the civil society, agitating for not to build nuclear power, not to expand the type of power generation they want to build and all that. Look at the scope investigation, which ESCOM could have done. Scope is all about what are the capacity you want to build. But scope, you understand the cost implication from the scope capacity, you understand the time it will take you. I'm talking from project management perspective. Once you understand the scope, it will help you to go to it will understand, it will help you to look at the time factor, look at the quality, and look at the risk that involve, and then look at the capacity, which is a quality specification. So with the scope, you're able to arrange all those information, and as well, you look at the information, historical data, site investigation, you look at the evaluation of alternative, look at design, choice or justification, and then you produce your feasibility report. Okay, then you conduct